We begin with the countdown to a day of double trouble for Donald Trump, with New York State poised to seize his assets tomorrow unless he comes up with more than $454 million. Trump's bank accounts and properties could be under the control of the courts by the end of the day. And Trump will attend tomorrow's hearing in the hush money case, where Stormy Daniels says she is ready to testify, a case that could make Trump the first former U.S. president to face a criminal trial.
This is not about party. This is not about politics. This is about corruption and criminality. We're talking about an individual who ordered essentially a terrorist attack on the Capitol of the United States in order to retain power. That is not about being a Republican. It is not about being a Democrat. It's about being an unethical and individual.
Also new today in Trump's Fulton County election racketeering case, the one involving what he describes as a perfect phone call to demand Georgia election officials find him 11,780 votes. District Attorney Fani Willis says the prosecution did not slow down during her disqualification hearing, and she has a new warning for Trump and his co-defendants. Here's what she told CNN.
I don't feel like my reputation needs to be reclaimed. Let's say it for the record. I'm not embarrassed by anything I've done. I guess my greatest crime is I had a relationship with a man, but that's not something that I find embarrassing in any way. And I know that I have not done anything that's illegal. All while that was going on, we were writing responsive briefs. We were still doing the case in the way that it needed to be done. I don't feel like we've been slowed down at all. I do think that there are efforts to slow down this train, but the train is coming.
Well, joining me now, Charles Coleman, former Brooklyn, New York prosecutor, now civil rights attorney, MSNBC legal analyst, and host of the Charles Coleman podcast, and a really good friend. So it's good to have you here. Let's start with the warning there from Fani Willis. It comes as Donald Trump is probably focused on the next 24 hours, and all that he has coming that's on his plate there. But what do you make of her statement and the timing of it?
Well, Alex, Fani Willis is doing her job. And what I mean by that is when you are a prosecutor, there's a certain amount of prosecutorial initiative that you have to maintain, essentially keeping your foot on the gas. And so even though Donald Trump may have been feeling some level of relief with the scathing opinion that was issued by Judge McAfee after this entire hearing regarding the conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest, she's letting him know we've been working. And so we're ready to pick up exactly where we left off and move forward with this case. So she's doing her job in as much as she's keeping her foot on the gas. I think that there is a certain level of public perception that she's managing because, remember, she's also an elected official. So she doesn't want to necessarily walk out with her tail tucked. She wants to appear strong. She wants to appear like she's in control, and that's exactly what she's doing with her comments.
Okay, let's move on to the 454 million plus. I mean, ballpark 450 because you've had interest added on a daily basis. But when it comes to that judgment against Trump, there is one prominent New York person here calling for equal treatment under the law. Let's watch this. This person happened to be a congresswoman.
I think Attorney General James has been handling this case with tremendous skill. It's ultimately up to her determination, but it is my belief that all people should be treated equally under the law. And if that seizure of assets would be pursued to any other American, then Donald Trump should be treated the same.
Look, you've worked for a long time in the New York justice system. You think that Donald Trump is hoping some sort of an appeals court comes to his rescue? Do you think they do?
Yes and no. I think he is absolutely hoping that because of the size of the judgment in this case, that he gets bailed out, at least to some extent, by an appeals court. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that, at least not without a significant showing of an effort on his part to get the funds. And I think part of this, Alex, is a situation of his own creation, not only the case itself, but also boasting about the amount of property, the amount of cash, the amount of wealth that you have in your portfolio.
I'm sorry, he says he has $500 million in cash.
So you cannot make these claims and these very sort of bombastic declarations, even though he's prone to do so, and then expect some level of sympathy from the court, particularly when you're appealing to the very judge who heard the case and entered the judgment. So I see this as being very unlikely.
And if he defaults, what do you think the AG's move is?
Well, that's the good question. And the reason I say that is because at that point, Letitia James will have to look over the entire portfolio of Donald Trump's holdings and make decisions about what she she wants to seize. She doesn't want to necessarily get in the business of taking Mar-a-Lago or casinos or these other properties, because that means that you have to run them to make sure that they are viable. And as the state attorney general, she doesn't do that. She's not in the real estate business. So liquidating those properties is a headache. That's why cash is so valuable in this situation. And so it really will be interesting to see what properties and what assets she actually goes after from a seizure standpoint first, and whether she looks to obtain all of the judgment from his real property or tries to get some in cash.
Okay, hearing in the hush money trial, that happens tomorrow, although there are those who would say it could actually be broadened to be called an election interference trial, given everything that happened. But you've got Stormy Daniels, you have Michael Cohen, others that will have to testify. This is not the one that analysts figured would go first. They didn't necessarily think this would be one that could hurt him the worst. Do you think that this one actually has some teeth to it and that Donald Trump should be concerned?
I actually think that Donald Trump wants this case to go first. Of all the cases, if he can't get the case in Mar-a-Lago in front of Judge Cannon, which we all know has been sort of home field advantage for him, this is the one that he's least concerned about because, number one, to be fair, it's an untested legal theory in large part for the reasons that you talked about. When you get into the notion of election interference, that's the one that I'm not certain is going to hold up. It's also one that I don't necessarily know that if convicted, he's going to face a huge penalty on. So for him, if he beats the case, then he gets to sort of further his image as the Teflon Don, as the gingerbread man, catch me if you can. And if he loses, he gets to say, look, look at all the resources they put behind trying to, convict me for what was ultimately a slap on the wrist. So I think he feels very comfortable taking his chances here, even though he doesn't necessarily want the sordid details of what happened regarding him and Stormy Daniels and the catch and kill situation to come out as more in the public than they already have.
What do you think the chances are that he pulls something out of a hat tomorrow? I mean, do you think it is possible? And if so, what would that be?
I think right now the most interesting thing that I've seen is the consolidation with his media company and them going public around the owners of Truth Social. I'm curious to see whether they will waive the notion of being able to use his ownership stake as collateral. He's not going to be able to sell his ownership stake this early in them going public. That is not going to happen. But it is possible that they may waive his ownership stake being used as collateral to get the actual cash. This is going to be a down-to-the-wire sort of endeavor, and I'll be interested to see if he can pull that off.
That's something that the board of Truth Social, would have to vote on.
Correct.
And that board consists of family members and a few others, so the likelihood then...
Yeah, but then after that, he still has to get a guarantor that's willing to put up cash in lieu of the actual ownership stake, and they may not want to do that.